Well, hello. This is Deanna Laird with Accountingfly, and with me I have Annette Nellen from San Jose State University. And this session is to continue the Q&A session from our Meet the Firms Week webinar, Successful Career in Taxation. We had so many great questions as a result of that webinar, and for those of you who attended know that we answered as many as we could during the session, but we ran out of time. And we had a lot of additional questions that we promised that we wanted to get back with you on, but so many that we decided to just record another session here and answer them verbally. And hopefully that would be an efficient and really effective way to get the answers to you. So that is what the purpose of this session is. And we have divided the questions into three main topic areas. And you'll see upcoming slides covering those topic areas and the questions that are related to that. So hopefully that'll help guide you through the information that we're talking about here, and be helpful for, you know, if you're looking for some specific question that you perhaps asked, you can know where to kind of search for amongst the time of this webinar, or this Q&A session, I should say. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in and get started. And if I can click here. So as I mentioned, we have three main kind of categories or topics of question groupings. And the first one we want to tackle is some questions around the tax practice. So I'll read some of these questions, and then Annette, if you can just jump in and give us your perspective, that would be great. So one of the okay, terrific. One of the questions was around really, it's more, I guess, nitty gritty or actual activities in regards to taxation, and when you have a job with an accounting firm, you know, especially probably for entry level type positions, there a lot of our audience was. Would they be doing more preparation, tax preparation type work, or tax planning with their clients?
A good question, and I think a lot of that will vary with the firm. At a larger firm, you'll probably do a little bit less tax preparation and more planning, or more even tied to the provision regarding the financial statements. A smaller firm, probably a good chunk of your time will be spent doing all kinds of preparation, but along with that, you know, year-end projections, planning, maybe some financial statement work as well. So I think it might vary. But it's a good question to try and find out about a firm before you decide if you're going to interview with them. And so you're talking to some of your classmates who may have interviewed with different firms to learn a little bit more about that.
Okay, terrific, terrific. So it really kind of can vary, opportunity, I guess, for both, and good thing to know about. Right. In the interview process. Okay, great. One of our audience members in our webinar mentioned that he or she had heard about tax jobs that are being sent overseas. What's your perspective on that? Is that something that you have seen a trend towards?
I believe that's been going on for several years, where some of the firms actually have an office, perhaps in India or South America, various places, and it's, I think, just trying to find, you know, where your work can be done at a particular cost that maybe a client is willing to pay for, where they can, you know, better get a better pricing model. Sometimes there are people from the U.S. that are over there supervising some of that work, but I don't think it means that there's a lack of jobs. Some of the work being done is perhaps more paraprofessional type work, but it can vary, but I don't think there's any concern that there's no tax jobs for college graduates in the U.S. There is a need for people doing tax work who have a accounting degree, and even ideally even have perhaps a master's degree in taxation. You will find work in the U.S. as long as you've got the whole package. You need the good knowledge, good communication skills, and good interpersonal skills.
Okay, good to know. So there's opportunity for sure. Great.
Right.
All right. And so the all-important question around salary, do you have a kind of snapshot or a summary that you can help as a guideline for the different areas of taxation?
Yeah, for the different areas, I think if you were starting off in an accounting firm, I think you're going to find probably the offer is pretty much the same. You're going to tax or audit for your first few years. Perhaps as you're moving up, that can vary. But so far as different career possibilities in tax, you maybe become a VP of tax at some large company. Yeah, you're probably going to do pretty well. In fact, even being a large company, maybe you're even getting stock options. You're not going to get stock options at an accounting firm, though you do hear stories of partners at very large firms making, in the 6 or 7 figures, perhaps. So a lot of it's going to depend on what you want to do, but certainly when you have that desire to want to be advancing and doing the things you need to be able to advance your career, meaning additional education, a good range of experience, that willingness to take on new challenges, that is going to certainly elevate your salary potential. If you are instead looking at, oh, well, maybe I'll get a job where I don't want to take on any management role, don't want to take on too much responsibility, I think you still find that you can find a good position where you make a decent salary, but you're probably going to reach some plateau at some point, where obviously if you're moving up from a staff person to 10, 12 years being a partner at a large firm or a director of tax or a VP of tax in industry, it can be a fairly high salary potential there.
Okay, great. Okay, let's move on to our next topic area. And this, as you can see, is recruiting and tax career planning. So a variety of questions under this kind of general topic. And to start off with, about while going to school, how important is it to get some experience in accounting concurrent with completing your degree?
I think it can be helpful, even just to you personally, to get a better sense of, what does this really mean? Because you're reading a textbook, you're doing homework, and sometimes it seems kind of isolated, like, almost like a theory. To put it in practice can also, putting it in practice can help you understand your coursework a bit better. I don't think it's absolutely crucial. I think people certainly do hire pure entry level right out of college. I know, though, a lot of the firms do offer internships, and of course part of that's not just for you getting experience, but then to check you out to see if they would like to make a longer term offer to you. Years ago when I was in college, I thought, gee, I should do something, and I had a couple of part-time jobs. One of them I took on was bookkeeping, because it gave me great exposure to seeing the nuts and bolts of what led into the accounting records, and I found it very useful for me understanding the accounting courses much better. But I think it really depends on your timing of when you plan to graduate. I think you can get more information. Certainly if your campus has a Beta Alpha Psi program, you should get involved with that. You'll learn more about the pros and cons of answering that. And then it's sometimes just personal situation. Maybe you just aren't able to work because of other demands on your time. I don't think it's the end of the world that you didn't have accounting work while you're going through school. I'm guessing the majority of students do not have accounting experience while they're at undergrad.
Right, okay. So the next question is kind of associated with that and around internships. So we had a couple of questions around, like, during your junior, senior year, maybe the summer between your junior and senior year, or as far back as your sophomore year. And then also, when is it important to apply for internships? So timing around, I guess, year of school, and then also from a recruiting standpoint, when does that whole process start?
Okay. Internships will also vary on the particular school and the particular area. Some schools might actually have a required internship, whether it's part of their undergraduate or their graduate program. So obviously you want to pay attention to that and learn what's involved, and will they find you a job? Do you find your own? How does that work? So getting involved, if your campus has it, in the Beta Alpha Psi program, you'll learn more about internship opportunities. And in your career center, and I hear a variety of things today, because I think it's kind of in a state of flux. I hear, sometimes even freshmen and sophomores have been offered internships, which is going to surprise me a little bit because, as a freshman, they probably haven't taken any accounting or business course yet. but I think there's just an eagerness to get good candidates early on. But I think it's more likely something happens in a junior or senior year, and I think that they are great opportunities, because particularly if it's for a firm where they use the internship, it's really kind of a pre-screening. They're trying to see, are you somebody they want to make a permanent offer to. So you got to look at internships. So it's just to help somebody out during busy season and that's it, or is it really a stepping stone to something bigger and more permanent? So you really want to learn about all of that. And again, FSI, your campus career center, good places to pursue that information.
Great. Okay. Now, in the recruiting process, let's say when someone's looking for a position, and let's take the next two kind of together because they're associated.
Good.
Let's take like a student who did not have maybe a BBA or a Bachelor of Science in Business degree with an accounting major, but maybe it was a Bachelor of Arts with a journalism major, but then maybe took some accounting courses. Or similarly, someone who might have some work experience, but it was in a field outside of accounting. How do you suggest that they focus on why they would be a good professional in the accounting profession now, obviously wanting to make a change to this industry?
Again, several things to consider here, and part of it might depend on the timing you've got. If it's like, well, gee, I got a couple of years that I can get this experience. If that's true, you might want to, for example, let's say you already have a bachelor's degree in biology. You're thinking, no, I'd rather go into accounting. If you've got the time to commit, you might want to take a look at finding a master's program that is designed for taking non-accounting majors, because then you're going to get a curriculum that's pretty similar to what an accounting major would have gone through, which then, of course, makes you, I think, better marketable. If you do not have that time, you can look at some universities might have a rapid type program where they're going to give you intensive, 40 or more hours a week, where you're going to be in class for 2 or 3 months and get a whole bunch of accounting units out of that, but a pretty intense program. That might be, a way to go. Others will just pick up classes, over a period of time as they have the ability to, and maybe they're working in some other field at the time. We see this in California, where some of the non-accounting majors will go to our community colleges, where they can actually pick up their first year of accounting. They can pick up intermediate A and intermediate B, and maybe even beyond that. So they can pick up a tax course. They might even be able to pick up an auditing course, or maybe an extension type course that some of the universities offer. So a lot will depend on what is available to you and what your time frame is. I would certainly encourage you not to cut corners. In our graduate tax program at San Jose State, 95% of our students have accounting undergrad, which is not surprising because that's just kind of a usual thing. You major in accounting and you think, gee, if I'm going to go do tax work, then I'll get a MST. Then I'll get a few contexts every once in a while where someone is thinking of changing careers, or they're looking at, well, what's the bare minimum number of accounting courses I can take to get into your MST program? And we'll be fine with them just doing 1 year principles of accounting, 1 semester of intermediate, and 1 undergraduate tax course. But I always tell them, if your goal upon getting your MST is to go interview with accounting firms, you do not look near the same as the vast majority of their candidates who have an undergrad accounting degree where they've taken both semesters of intermediate. They've probably taken advanced, they've taken auditing, they've taken a whole host of marketing and finance courses. You just won't look that way, so be aware it might really limit your opportunities. I tell them they should at least have a full year of intermediate and probably take an advanced course. And if they're planning to sit for the CPA exam, then of course they have to make sure they have sufficient accounting units as required by your state for even being able to take the exam, and then perhaps even more units required if you have a 150-hour requirement in your state. So I think the overall advice is, think about your time frame. Is it realistic? If you're thinking, I want to rush, I'm going to get this done as soon as possible, I'd say step back and say, why? What's the point of rushing when it might really limit your career opportunities? And then just think about, gee, if I'm going to be doing this because I want to go get a job at a CPA firm, how do I look compared to all those accounting majors that they get resumes from? So I would encourage you to try and get as close as you can, especially in the accounting courses, to what a typical accounting undergrad has.
Okay. And you just referenced, well, the MST, CPA. So there's lots of different qualifications, right? And some go hand in hand. I think the graduate programs, helping you get maybe the credits to sit for the CPA, but some are a bit different. So enrolled agent, particularly with taxation. So can you give some guidance on how can students choose, maybe learn about the differences or the complementary factors of the different types of qualifications, and then go ahead and wrap in that comment about the process for the enrolled agent, particularly in the taxation area.
Sure. So certainly thinking about what it is you want to do. Let's take maybe what's the easy one here. Someone suggested, what about a PhD? You really need a PhD if you plan to go and teach, which is a great idea. I think accounting students don't hear enough about the possibility of pursuing an accounting PhD, because there, I believe, still is a shortage of accounting PhDs out there relative to the number of positions that are open. But the PhD otherwise for accounting, I think, would be beyond what you would need unless you're pursuing a career in teaching at a university level. So far as MST or MSA, I think for an MSA, certainly if you want to get more focus study on accounting, or that's the route you want to go to get your 150 units, that's great, because I think anytime you're thinking, gee, I need to get extra units to get to 150, if you are eligible, I mean, you meet the requirements to get into a graduate program, I would always encourage you, get the graduate degree. Even if it's going to cost you more than picking up classes at a community college, in the long run, the graduate degree is going to do you better, because you will have ramped up your ability to learn, you're ramped up your critical thinking skills, and then also even just that degree, it says a lot when someone sees it on your resume. And they like to, and I think I mentioned in the first seminar that if you look at the degrees of individuals who are partners at firms or VPs of tax, directors of tax, almost always they've got some kind of a graduate degree. So MST, MSA, excellent ones for getting your 150 units. Get your 120 unit bachelor degree, get the additional 30 units with a graduate degree. MST, I think, has, if you're going into a tax career, that's even other reasons to get that even beyond the need for 150. In fact, if you're already a working professional in the tax area and do not have an MST, I would seriously encourage you to pursue that, because you'll just be able to do more in the tax area. There's no doubt it gets more and more complicated, and having that broad, deep knowledge of the tax law and excellent research skills is really going to pay off quite well. So that'd be a reason to get an MST, that you are either pursuing the tax career and want to get that degree, whether for 150 hours just for getting it, or you're already in the career. Even if you're already a CPA, do think about getting an MST. In our program, 85% of the students are working professionals with typically 2 to 12 years of experience, realizing, oh, I'll do much better getting the MST. I'll understand what I'm doing better. I'll be much better at it. So far as the CPA, main reason for a CPA would be you want to work for a CPA firm, and the main thing that credential gives you is that you can do certified audits. You don't need to be a CPA to do tax returns. If you're doing other things, yes, you might need the CPA. Now that said, the public, well, they might not know what a CPA is. They know it sounds really good, because if you ever told somebody, oh, I'm an accountant, the next question is, oh, are you a CPA? So it does carry a lot of weight for a lot of reasons. Are all those reasons legitimate? Perhaps not. It certainly does carry the weight of you're able to pass a fairly difficult exam. As a CPA, you must maintain that licensure by following the rules of conduct on that in your state. You must maintain continuing education requirements. So it is giving you this kind of a badge of like, wow, you are at this higher level than somebody who isn't with that kind of requirement. And so in that regard, CPAs and attorneys kind of the same category, because they are subject to some pretty strict rules of conduct to maintain their license, as well as continuing education requirements. So it does carry a fair amount of weight and stature, and so if that's one reason perhaps to do it. Certainly if you're going to be working at a CPA firm, you need to become a CPA. A chartered accountant, I mean, doesn't necessarily carry a lot of weight here, though I think in interviewing for a firm, if they see you've already attained that level, they probably have no doubt that you could become a CPA. You've attained that. Why you could certainly probably certainly pass the CPA exam and attain that. So I think it does show an indication. It also shows a seriousness to your profession when you're interviewing for a position in the U.S. Law degree, but the main reason you need a law degree is because you want to practice law from a practical perspective. Now that said, I've got a law degree, which I actually use as a doctorate in my field. That's I'm a full professor at San Jose State. I don't have a PhD, but in the tax area, my university's fine with a law degree, and I enjoyed getting it. It was a demanding intellectual engagement, which I thoroughly enjoyed. In addition to, I'm a CPA as well. But law degree, it can also be just an interesting engagement. Do realize that it is quite expensive today to do that, so gives that some serious thought as to, do you really want to do it? And it's a lot of work. I know sometimes I hear people say, oh, we had to read so much this week. You gave us 50 pages. If you didn't like reading 50 pages a week, you probably don't want to go to law school. You're going to read and write far more than that. But certainly it's going to give you very good research skills. But you see sometimes the CPA firms picking up law graduates, and certainly if they're already got an accounting undergrad, that's a plus, because they'll often find that the law school graduates are often better researchers and better writers. And the last one here, the enrolled agent, that's a designation given by the IRS, and you have to pass a test. You have to follow certain rules of conduct set out by the IRS, as well as I think it's 30 hours of continuing education credit a year, and that is a status. It's unfortunately not as well known to the public as it probably should be, given how long it's been around, but it truly is really the only designation that indicates that you have a certain tax knowledge. CPA, yeah, there's tax questions on the CPA exam, but not a lot. I don't think any state has tax questions on their bar exam, so there's no guarantee just because you're an attorney you know something about the tax law. But enrolled agent, you have studied and passed the test regarding the federal tax law and have continuing education to keep it up to speed. Some people, might decide that they want to form out their own tax practice. They're not going to do audits or compilations or anything. They just want to do tax work. They might find becoming an enrolled agent is just fine. And there's like the National Association of Enrolled Agents or professional networks you can get engaged with. Though I think often accounting majors do want to go that step further often and become a CPA. There's really no reason to become both a CPA and an enrolled agent because so far as the IRS perspective, both they view them the same so far as who you can represent before the IRS. CPA, attorney, enrolled agent have the same representation rights before the IRS. But something look into all of those, any that you're particularly interested in. You can certainly get a lot of information about any of these on the internet, or check with your accounting faculty as well.
Okay, you know what? Let me jump it down to that IRS. For opportunities working for the IRS, is a taxation degree required, or is it something highly recommended? Getting a leg in the door there?
No, I don't think so. At the IRS, one challenge getting hired at the IRS is that they don't always have a normal or regular hiring process. It really depends on their budgeting, because I run across students who would love to work for the IRS, but sometimes they're just waiting, their application's in there, hoping that they're going to have a hiring period, but it doesn't always happen, so it's not quite as regular as you're going to see, the interview process at most accounting firms and even in industry. Typically, to be a revenue agent, you are going to need to have an undergraduate degree, ideally in accounting, because you are going to be doing audits. You're going to be looking at lots of books and records and trying to figure them out. So you definitely need the accounting degree. The MS Tax, I think they certainly would think that's a good idea, but I have not heard that that's required for that particular job. I know it was not when I worked for the IRS a long time ago, and certainly I think it can certainly help you do a better job, but I do not believe that that's an entry-level requirement. Usually just looking for that you've got an accounting undergraduate degree.
Okay. All right, and then if someone was, so volunteer income tax assistance, Does that, the time spent with that, does that equate to experience similar to, let's say, a job in accounting or even an internship?
I would say it's very similar. The VITA program run by the IRS is an excellent program. They have excellent training, excellent materials, and you are serving real people. You are preparing real tax returns for real people, typically both the federal and the state. Some of them do get quite complicated because maybe they've got some unusual transaction, or perhaps they are temporarily in this country and they've had some income they need to report. I know I've heard at some sites the volunteers are pulling out tax treaties and figuring out how things are supposed to be reported. So you can suddenly get some good work. And yes, I suggest that if someone doesn't get an internship or isn't able to take an internship, always look at VITA. Now, some students maybe on a visa requirement aren't able perhaps to take a paying job, but take a look at VITA because it's great experience. The accounting firms are well aware of what VITA is. Often they have people there helping out, and they know it's good experience. So don't ever overlook it. And it's also, if you're not quite sure, do I even really enjoy doing some of this? It might be a good exposure to see what a prep experience is like. And they're using tools. I mean, they're e-filing. They're using tax prep software. They have to do initial interviews with the clients to get the information needed. It's a great experience, great training program, great to do something after you've had your first semester undergrad tax course. And watch the timing. Typically, the training starts around November, and then by like the third, fourth week in January, you're at a VITA site, and it might be 4 hours a week, might be a little bit more, but it's really not that time intensive for what you're really getting out of it. Plus, it's a great community service.
And so is there a cost for them to take the training?
Oh, no, it's all free. Everything's free.
Oh, awesome. Okay, great. Okay, down to specialization in accounting, tax, say, maybe versus audit. Is it pretty standard that we'll have to choose a course, and is that right at the beginning of their jumping off, from academics to career, or how important is it for them to kind of pinpoint it early on?
That's a good question, and because you might say, well, how do I really know? I've taken a bunch of undergrad classes, and I was interested in this, interested in that, but how do I know that this plays out to be a lifetime career I would be interested in? And I think the firms recognize that, and it does vary, I think, among firms. Some firms purposely make you rotate around different assignments. Also, of course, in some firms you might actually need to do, even if you want to do tax work, they might have to have you rotate through the auditing department so you can get whatever hours you might need to qualify for becoming a CPA. And I think if you're not entirely sure, and I'm not sure how you could be entirely sure, not having done any of this work, any kind of a long-term basis, is they have the opportunity to see these different areas. So if that option is available, I encourage you to take advantage of that. I know it's always a good standard interview question where you ask, where would I be starting off, or would I get exposure to different practice areas within the firm? That's a good question to ask, and I think where you can get that is great. And that also helps because, for example, if you just went in and you're going right into the tax department, you're getting work papers from the audit department, and you have a better appreciation of those work papers if you'd actually had a rotation where you're actually preparing those worksheets. You know all the ticking and tying and the symbols and what was involved in getting all of those. I think you have a far better appreciation of them if you've had the opportunity to do that. And then so far as, if they say, okay, you've had a year rotating around, where do you want to spend your time? Now, most likely they would have perhaps also identified where you seem to have a strength, but if they are asking you, then yeah, you got to do some serious thought as to, gee, if I'm making a career decision is going to last me a long time, what is it that I really want to do? So hopefully no one's going to require you to declare your final specialization day one of the job. If they really are mandating that, you're not quite sure, that might not really be the job for you. But I think you'll find, for the most part, most firms do want to give you a little bit of exposure, just so you also understand the firm better.
Okay. We have, a fair number of international students that come to Accountingfly either to look for a position, a job, or just to get advice. And it's often brought up that there's sometimes seems like there's limits on the opportunities available to international students. So what's your perception of that, and maybe any advice you have?
A few things. We have a few international students in our MST program, and one the best word to use, a roadblock they sometimes come across is just that not all firms are able to sponsor their visa. That's what needs to be done to get employment. Certainly, international students should find out as early as possible, perhaps even before they apply to an institution, what are the rules as to when I can go out and get an internship. For example, some universities might have a rule that might be more strict than what the federal law requires. You want to know that. For example, maybe you have to be on F1 status for 2 full semesters before you're eligible to do an internship. How many units do you need to be taking? Find all that out so you know what is going to happen at the university that you decide, yes, I'm going to go there and I've been accepted and all that. So find all that out. Talk to your classmates. There's probably already other international students there. See what they've already learned. Again, join Beta Alpha Psi just for increased networking. And then really do a good focus on what all you need to do to make sure you are as job ready as possible. I think you want to have as high a GPA as you can. Not that GPA is always everything, but I think you just want to show, I'm going to catch the attention of somebody, and they might be then willing to say, you know what, we will go through that extra work to figure out how we're going to sponsor your visa. Because it might take that, because, I remind my students that, like at San Jose State, we've got roughly 700 accounting undergrads. We've got over 100 tax and MST and MSA students. We've got local universities that also have accounting programs. We have firms that hire from out of state and out of the area. So you've got a big competition base that you're up against, and the majority of those students do not have to have a visa sponsored. So if you need the employer to do one more thing, make sure you've got everything in place that you look like a very desirable candidate. And sometimes that is going to be spending some extra time improving communication skills. When English is not your native language, yeah, it's difficult to learn. I've run into students that may have only been in the country for a year or two, still getting a higher confidence level in their English skills. Everything you can to improve that. If you've got classmates that you're maybe speaking a different language to them, you're missing an opportunity to be practicing your English. If you think, gee, my writing skills, maybe they aren't all that good. That's why I get these red marks on the paper, and maybe I should go find another writing class I can take. But do everything to make sure that everything that's on that job description, which usually the top one usually is good communication skills, good interpersonal skills. The rest of it they'll assume you have if you have the degree. So get all the information you can, work hard, and certainly do not have any notion in your head, oh, I can't get hired. Because I think when anybody has that notion, it comes across. I mean, it's just, you're kind of sending a subtle message, nope, don't hire me. You should have the attitude of, wow, they would be lucky to hire me. I have all these great things going for me, and they'd be willing, hopefully, to also sponsor my visa. Now, that said, certainly also be looking for opportunities for CPT, OPT, where that is a little bit easier to get, and make sure the one you're getting is really good experience. Don't settle for something that's doesn't even require perhaps an undergraduate degree. Make sure you're really getting a challenging OPT, CPT, because that's going to build your skills and make you more presentable, desirable as a candidate for the ultimate job you're looking for.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. So this next one, I'm kind of curious on if you can even answer it and narrow it down to the most important characteristics for a tax professional. Is there one?
Well, see, I'm always tempted to give at least two, but I'll say a burning desire for intellectual curiosity, because you're going to be always faced with complicated rules. If that turns you off, you're probably not going to go too far in the tax field because it's complicated. You have to have that willingness to, like, I really want to figure this out. What does this really mean?
Mm-hmm.
What does this transaction really mean? What does that really look like? I think you just have to have that intellectual engagement that you really want to do that.
Okay, great. All right, moving on to our next slide here. There we go. It wasn't cooperating here. So generally tax and other resources, and I think you see from scholarships to some resources where you provided some links that were specifically requested, and general advice on how to stay up to date on skills and the latest advancements or latest changes in maybe tax law.
Okay. Something for scholarships, look widely. Professional organizations, in your area, there could be a variety of them. Don't just think, oh, it's like the state CPA Society. There might be additional local organizations that are in the accounting or finance area that offer scholarships. So do look widely. Check your own university webpage to see what they have listed there. Go to your Department of Accounting, whatever accounting programs you've got, see what they list. They might be offering scholarships like our MST program. We've got some funds that we raise. We offer scholarships just for our program. And look very, very widely. There's a lot out there, and a lot of times I hear this, wow, only 10 people applied out of like a universe of thousands. 10 people applied. And I think a lot of times students are like, oh, there'll be too many applications, I don't have a chance. Well, you definitely don't have a chance if you don't apply. So if you're looking for a scholarship, ask a lot of questions, do good web searches, and apply. The other ones, resources for staying up to date in the tax code. Well, if you have on your campus, if you can sign up for, like through REA Checkpoint, to get an email delivered to you every day with the updates, and you can log in and see them, that might be kind of a lot for a new person in the tax area. You can sign up for tax alerts from the IRS, probably from your state tax agency. They come out with varying frequency. IRS, be cautious. They send you a few every day. There might be more than you want. I know in California there's a nice one that comes from the state tax agency once a month. Nice to get through, but a kind of way to keep up to date. Probably finding maybe some blogs that you think are good. The large accounting and law firms have a variety of newsletters that they will send out to you on particular topics. So maybe just doing do a web search of, for example, PwC newsletter, and it probably will get you to the site and see what they offer. Check the samples online. If you like them, they'll probably email them to you. Ask your professors, what do you use to stay up to date? And gee, when you're done with your copy of whatever journal you're reading to keep up to date, can I have it? That really gets a lot of points. Not maybe points on your grade, but points in their mind of, wow, that person is really interested in all this. Go to the library, see what journals they subscribe to. Your library probably subscribes to the Journal of Taxation, the Tax Advisor, perhaps a few others. So far as improving tax research skills, in your undergrad class, you may have found the textbook actually gave you access to one of the commercial tax tools. If your instructor did not assign it, perhaps you want to go in and check it out yourself. Check in your library, what do you have access to, because you probably do have access to something. If your school has a graduate tax program, you've got library access to various tools. You might just need to check the library. And then, of course, the best way to improve your tax research skills is, and maybe I'm biased here, but I hear students say the same thing after they've taken a graduate level tax course. They're like, wow, now I know how to do tax research. And I tell them, I've been doing it for over 25 years, and every day I'm learning something new. So you keep at it, because tools change and all that. But if you have the opportunity, if you're an MST program, you would take a tax research course, and it would definitely ramp up your tax research skills. And I guess this last question, in which area of tax are you interested in? How did you determine it? But that was geared at me. I'll tell you a quick story. As an undergrad, I didn't do all that well. I got a good grade in tax, but I was kind of lost in it. I don't know what it was, but it didn't quite register. So if someone tells me that today, it's like, oh, don't give up. You know, at some point it'll hit home. But my entry into tax was actually with the Internal Revenue Service. I was interested in seeing what they did. I was intrigued by it, and I was not disappointed. I loved being at the IRS. It was a job. And other things you're thinking about, at the IRS, you have a lot of responsibility. There's a good training, but then throughout they just send you these cases, and they say, okay, you identify the issues, contact the taxpayer, and go work the case. There's no one looking over your shoulder. You got a lot of responsibility. I really enjoyed that, and plus it was a great variety. It was always new taxpayers, new preparers, so I got interested in that. But then through that, then maybe I find some areas of the law that you're most interested in. And I was always interested in things on property transactions, individual tax transactions. But you'll find, from some work, as you're working a few years, there's some areas that might just intrigue you a little bit more, especially if it's an area where it's kind of a complicated practice area. Great, because then you become the specialist for your firm in that particular area. And whenever there's law changes, take a careful look, because some of those are new practice areas. There's some things like, for example, in the Affordable Care Act that are great opportunities for someone to become their firm expert on those topics.
Right. Okay. Well, this has been great. That reached the end of our questions. So thank you for your time to go through some really good and varied questions, and I'm sure that your answer is going to be really valuable to those listening to this. So thanks so much. Is there anything you want to just?
You're quite welcome. Oh, yes, quite welcome, and I wish everybody the best of luck, and my compliments to Accountingfly for putting together a wonderful seminar series, and kudos to those of you who had signed up, because you took advantage of opportunities, and that's how you move ahead.
Great. All right. Well, thanks so much, Annette. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.